Hello, I'm Carl Swinson, and I have the honor and privilege of introducing Ray McBerry, the gubernatorial states' rights Republican candidate for the state of Georgia. Ray, I would like to start off with the Second Amendment and see how you would like to address that issue here for the state of Georgia.
Sure. Well, Carl, I understand that the Second Amendment is not the only one of our liberties that is currently under attack, but I also understand that the Second Amendment really is the guarantee of all of our other liberties. And the day that we lose our right to keep and bear arms is the day that all our other liberties will be in immediate peril and probably will be very short-lived after that. I think that it's interesting that under the current administration in Washington, the Obama administration has nominated and had confirmed now the most anti-gun Attorney General in American history. Eric Holder is more anti-gun, if you can believe it or not, than Janet Reno was, even under the Clinton administration. And I think we need to understand that the right to keep and bear arms is a God-given right. It's not a right that we were given by the Second Amendment. That simply acknowledges the right that we all already possess. And, I think it's important that we understand that it's going to take strong governors who believe in the 10th Amendment and states' rights to stand up against those encroachments coming out of Washington when they do come for our right to keep and bear arms. Because I do not know the day nor the hour when it's coming, but the enemies of our liberty are definitely coming for our right to keep and bear arms. They know they have to get that liberty out of the way so they can attack the others eventually as well. And I think probably many of the viewers are familiar with the stories that were coming out of the Hurricane Katrina crisis several years ago. In the aftermath of the storm, you had FEMA and other federal agents that were literally going around trying to confiscate the weapons of law-abiding citizens in the Gulf Coast region. And I'm not talking about trying to confiscate the weapons of people that were robbing, breaking into people's homes, stealing things. I'm talking about trying to disarm law-abiding citizens, going to their homes, door to door, demanding that they give up their firearms because it was an emergency situation. Well, what any states' rights governor should have said in any one of those states, and what Ray McBerry has already gone on record with Fox News as saying, is that the first time I find any federal agent trying to disarm one law-abiding citizen in my state, that federal agent's going to find himself sitting in a Georgia jail waiting for someone to come bail him out. And that is, I have people sometimes ask me, do you say that because it's fun to say? No, it is kind of fun to talk about because federal agents need to be put in their place. But the truth of the matter is, that is the constitutional obligation that the governor has, is to defend our liberties, no matter from where that threat comes. And I think that we need to understand that the threats to our liberties today come from more so than someone in the Middle East. Our threats to our liberty today come from a little bit closer to home, from that federal Leviathan on the banks of the Potomac. And we absolutely must have states' rights governors who are willing to stand up for their people's liberties and interpose themselves on behalf of the people.
Well, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. But I'd also like to follow that up with the militia. What is it about the militia that scares people so much, and what would you be able to do as governor to encourage the formation or reinstatement of a well-formed militia?
Well, I think the media and the Marxists in Washington have tried to disarm the people and their right to have a militia. I think there's a misunderstanding among a lot of people, even well-intentioned patriots, about what the militia is supposed to be. Many people think that it's supposed to be the National Guard. Well, the National Guard was actually created by the federal government in an attempt to do away with or thwart the rightful, constitutional, legitimate state militias or state guards. And, I think what we need to have is a return. Here in Georgia, our Constitution of 1983 states that the state of Georgia has both an organized and an unorganized state militia. And really what we need to get back to, I believe, is doing away with this mental concept that we need the federal government to take care of every problem that we have. Most people think of the National Guard as emergency preparedness in our states. What we need to get back to is not relying on the federal government, whether it be the National Guard, FEMA, or whomever, and get back to the understanding that we as a state have a responsibility to take care of ourselves. And our people are best able to take care of their neighbors. And I think if we get back to that constitutional concept of a state militia or a state guard, then we'll have less infringements upon our liberties from FEMA and other groups like that. And there will be more of a sense of belonging and responsibility among our own people to take care of ourselves. And I think ultimately if we're going to regain our liberties, it's going to be because the states do go back to accepting that responsibility of taking care of ourselves, taking care of our own people, and not relying on the federal government to be the almighty answer to everything.
Isn't that, after all, the crux of the matter? On one side, you have a party that wants to provide for everything. And then on the other side, you have a party that wants the individual to be more responsible. At this point, that's what the fight is. Call them Marxists, socialists, progressives. Pick your label, it doesn't much matter. All we know is they're coming after us in every which way, and usually they're coming after us in the way of redistribution of wealth and in the form of taxation. How would you, Mr. McBerry, deal with the taxation issue when it is clearly unconstitutional?
Well, I love to talk about the tax issue because it's one of the things that separates me from all of the other Republicans in the race for governor here in Georgia. And I think we're really setting an example for states across the continent to follow. My campaign, and I personally am the only candidate in the race for governor, at least here in Georgia, to propose that here in Georgia, if nowhere else, we would repeal both the state income tax and the property tax and replace both of them with a simple state sales tax. The truth is both the graduated income tax and property tax are Marxist to the core. They never were part of what made America great in the first place. And if we're going to get back to being great, it's going to be because we go back to those founding principles that made America great. The graduated income tax and property tax are both planks of the Communist Manifesto that have been installed in America's history in the last century. And the right of a free man or woman to own their own property outright is one of the cornerstones of any free republic that has ever existed in the history of mankind. No one, especially in today's financial situations, ought to have to worry about losing their home and their property at the end of the year because they didn't pay their rent to the government. We either own our property or we do not. And it's about time that we restore property rights to property owners so that the citizens can regain all of our other liberties that are built up upon the right of property. And you know, I guess there are two good reasons we ought to get rid of the graduated income tax and the property tax. Number one is because they are Marxist. It's the right thing to do. But even for those folks that don't get the warm, fuzzy feelings about doing it because it's the right thing to do, there's a dollars and cents reason we ought to do it too, because until we can get rid of all the illegals that should never have been allowed to come here in the first place, they will finally have to start paying for their share of all the services they're currently using that the rest of us that are honest taxpayers and property owners have been bearing the burden for. And so I think those are two good reasons that we ought to get rid of both the graduated income tax and property tax and replace both of them with a simple state sales tax that exempts necessities like food and medicine. Because at that point, it genuinely is a voluntary tax. And if it's a voluntary tax, it's a fair tax.